they've been really, really brave looking at these different ways in which they could sell a same brand.
They really needed to have something that was differentiated. And hence, I remember when the concept was mooted, they actually brought in people from the hospitality industry, from the aviation industry.
They tried premium products. They had the Grand Vitara, the Kizashi, the XL7, the Grand Vitara XL7.
Right.
All of them didn't meet with success.
Large part of last financial year, it was challenging Hyundai to be the second largest brand.
They also mooted a separate dealer network for women only. Hello and welcome to Autocar Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime, where we discuss all things automotive. Now, this week we've got a very special episode because we're discussing dedicated premium outlets. I'm Sergius Barretto.
I'm Ketan Thakkar.
And Ketan, let's start with, of course, the one that started it all in India, Nexa, right? I mean, it was quite an ambitious move, if you ask me, from Maruti to get down this route. Of course, we've seen, separate, you can say, premium brands. So Toyota has Lexus, Honda has Acura in the States.
Right.
But this was the same brand. It's not a separate brand. It's Maruti Suzuki.
Right.
But they decided, hey, let's just split the same brand into two different, completely different showroom, because it's showroom service, everything, two retail networks. Let's discuss why did they do that and get to, their stats now, which is why we're probably discussing this, right? 500 Nexa outlets.
Right. That's
yeah.
right.
It's quite something, right? It's obviously clearly been a success. So what made it a success, but why did they start it? I mean,
Sergius, Maruti was going great guns, at 50% market share way back in 2009, 2010. There was a wave of global brands coming in, and the market was evolving faster, and market was asking for more higher price models. And the portfolio at Maruti Suzuki itself had started swelling, and it had grown to almost 14, 15 cars. Now, they knew that they had to take the next big step to break into the higher price models. Yes, they did attempt with the Kizashi and Grand Vitara over a period of time, but it was met with a very lukewarm success. Yeah. And they realized, they needed to look at the premium imagery or the upgrader space, a space which was very actively being consumed by Hyundai and Honda at that point in time. That was a market that Maruti was not able to capitalize on. So they really had to look at something different, something that could offer a differentiated experience to the consumers. And also the product portfolio had to be different. So I think that's how the Nexa outlets were mooted and conceived. And it was to begin with a very slow start. It started with Ignis. They had a Ciaz. And
2015, right? I mean,
it actually started with S-Cross, S-Cross, Ignis,
right.
And Ciaz. For almost about 3-4 years, the network barely had any models. And it was a slow start to begin with. But Maruti Suzuki knew that, they had high aspirations and a Japanese company at the core. So they really look at the future 10, 15 years. And they knew what was the portfolio that they were getting into. And they knew that in order to cater to a larger market and larger audience, they would need to have a dedicated outlet. I think after a slow start, the thing started catching momentum, and I think they've done well.
Yeah, like speaking of a slow start and momentum, I mean, I was just looking at some of their stats. When they started the first year, it was about 5%. Nexa contributed to 5% of their total sales. Today, they're standing at 30 plus, right? It's 32 or 33%. So clearly a third of their sales from this premium sort of outlet, it's clearly worked. And like you said, they tried premium products.
Right.
They had the Grand Vitara, the Kizashi, the XL7, the Grand Vitara XL7.
Right.
All of them didn't meet with success. Now, of course, not just because of the lack of a premium network. I wouldn't put it down to only that. Those products also, some of them may be too early, ahead of their time.
Right.
The XL7, I think as it was called, yes. The 3-row big SUV, V6 petrol.
Right.
At that time, it's not going to fly. A V6 petrol, and that is from Maruti, a brand known for
Maruti 800. I mean,
and
fuel efficiency, small cars, small dimension,
correct. So
value for money.
Exactly. So I think there were other issues too, but you're right. I mean, definitely the lack of a premium sort of shopping experience drove them to do that. And Ketan, something very interesting. While they were mooting these things, it wasn't just a premium thing. They also mooted a separate dealer network for women only.
What are you saying?
Yeah, women only. And
That's an interesting story.
but also run by women. Obviously, you're not going to have only women customers come in. So and have men servicing the whole the, sort of showroom and things like that. But right from the security guards to the receptionists, the salespeople, everyone would be a woman, right? Yeah, to take care of only women customers. And again, so a whole separate network, a whole separate line, and of course that didn't materialize as we know now as we speak. But I think they've been really, really brave looking at these different ways in which they could sell a same brand, because they didn't want to create another premium brand like how Toyota created Lexus, right? It was a global thing that they would have to do.
Right.
You can't just create a one-off brand for only a market here. So it had to be Maruti Suzuki. I think they were very smart saying, okay, it can be Maruti Suzuki, but let's put different products in there. Maybe premium products, like you said, higher end, looking at, I guess, an older customer. Is that safe to assume?
Yeah, I mean, probably you could say so. But, Sergius, what I feel is, given the fact that they had the early mover advantage, right, from 1983 to almost 2024, I mean, more than 40 years. So the first 20, 25 years were very carefully, the company thought about what are the markets that they could penetrate into. So geographically, Maruti Suzuki, year after year, kept on building its network. And one of the reasons why it is considered as the most reliable brand, because you may drive to any part of the country, any roadside mechanic will be able to fix your car. So they had addressed the reach part,
Right.
and their cars, the spare parts were easily available. The cars were easy to maintain. Every 100 to 200 kilometers, there would be a Maruti outlet. So there was always this peace of mind. But they realized that if they have to move from, say, a 1.5 to 3 million to 5 million eventually in the coming decades, how are they going to reach that? And clearly, then they had to sub-segment the market. And they were seeing that the average price points in the market were moving up. They were very active with the sub-4 meter sedan space. The Dzire did phenomenally well. Swift was able to create that sort of a first premium hatch. Then we saw the company also tried to do a sub-4 meter SUV. I mean, while we had the likes of Ford EcoSport and Mahindra Quanto, but it was only after Brezza you saw the sub-4 meter market actually exploding. So Maruti Suzuki was carefully then deciding the product portfolio, and it realized, I mean, like I said earlier, 15 models in one showroom is very difficult to cater to the needs of different buyers. And, the average price points were moving up, the average age was changing, and they really needed to have something that was differentiated. And hence, I remember when the concept was mooted, they actually brought in people from the hospitality industry, from the aviation industry. And if you were to look at the entire selling process, the entire order booking was taken on a tablet. It was a paperless exercise. So clearly, Maruti realized that, it had to offer something new, something different.
True.
But what was interesting for me with that outlet, Sergius, was the fact that, like you mentioned, brands like Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, Maruti was not going too much far away from what its core was. So it was creating a network and a channel for a step up. And it knew that, it could not leap. It had to take those one step at a time. And I think, initially the dealers were losing money and it seemed like an exercise which would backfire. But Maruti had the conviction that, product portfolio is coming.
Stuck with it,
Yeah, product portfolio is coming and eventually it'll pay dividends. And today, I mean, just for our viewers, I mean, for a large part of last financial year, it was challenging Hyundai to be the second largest brand.
Exactly.
I think this year, because of the rise of Tatas, it's about 3, 4. But for a brand which is just there in the market for the last 8, 9 years, I think number 4 is phenomenal.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, essentially, if you carve them out, what you're saying is you carve them out as a separate company, they are the third or fourth largest player. In fact, even looking at their outlets, 500 outlets, again puts them in that position again at number 3 in terms of net reach spread. Yeah, the reach. Just Nexa, not even counting the arena, outlets. So, yeah, I think it's definitely reach, But I want to just go back to one thing you said in terms of the challenges dealers faced for a while. For a while there weren't sort of products coming in. And Ketan, for me, that was something that I thought was going to be a bigger problem. In fact, I remember doing a column about it, and I have to eat humble pie now. saying that this would be a big problem for Maruti because, see, technically when you're a company and you want to sort of develop your products, you're developing your products in order of maybe importance to your business and, you're reacting to competitors and things like that. And it, of course, gets into your network. Now, for Maruti, they also have to develop products, keeping in mind filling two pipelines. They're two separate pipelines, right?
Absolutely.
So you're developing products, you're reacting to the market. And what if it were all going towards, by some chance, towards one pipeline only, either Nexa or Arena? That was a problem. And I began to see that Maruti started taking calls that, okay, no, let's do this because, you need to balance pipelines. And I thought it would be a bigger problem. But I think hats off to them. They've managed it beautifully. They only moved the Ciaz, I think. It's only the Ciaz.
That's correct.
Yeah, only the Ciaz from Arena to
But, to address the challenge of the profitability of dealer, I think they carefully chose the profitable dealers, the ones who are doing really well with the existing
Okay, so
network.
you mean the guys who are already well
Entrenched with the Maruti brand, had a phenomenal business coming from the service with the thousands of lakhs of cars that they might have sold, and those were the dealers who were given the opportunity to expand into Nexa.
Okay.
So it was easier. Having said that, at the end of the day, two different showrooms, two different costs. When volumes are not really happening, and this was the phase of 2017, 2018, where the Indian market was going through a difficult patch, you could hear the dealer speaking. The pressure was rising, the discounts were moving up, the rivals were growing market share. We had the likes of Kia and MG eventually coming in there. So clearly the pressure was rising. But there was that one conviction that, the channel will eventually be filled with number of products. And if you were to look at the portfolio that they have right now, of the 17 products, 9 of them are in Arena and 8 of them are in Nexa already. And you see, while the volumes, like you said, is about 32%, but in terms of profit margin, I mean, clearly, they're really making good margins at this point in time. And, you can expect a lot more coming out from that channel eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. The profitability would be higher, given that the ticket prices is higher in Nexa. I mean, much higher there, And I think advantage now, okay, I've been thinking about the disadvantages, like I said, managing pipelines. There's also reach, which we'll come to later, right? But so one of the advantages is now, they've got another sort of premium or another separate pipeline for electric vehicles.
That's correct.
EVs, even if you do a sort of, let's say, an entry EV, like, say, Tata did with the Punch, it's still not really technically a Punch, customer, right? It's still a 15 lakh kind of product.
Right.
Therefore, when they do their EVs, whatever they may be, whether it's the EVX, as we know, sort of mid-size SUV, or even if they do a smaller one, it would be a more expensive product, and you already have a network developed.
Absolutely.
They don't have to do a Tata.ev.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but am I right in thinking that Tata.ev, let's say, is focused on powertrain? Right. It's electric. This is internal combustion. Here you've got, well, it can be anything, right? It can be CNG, it can be petrol. We know CNG, for example.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've often seen it as the market sees it as a sort of, lower segment fuel, if I could call it that.
Right.
But Nexa selling CNG now, right? So will that cause some sort of, confusion, you think? Because Tata, let's say, would be very clear with, okay, electrics here, ICE here. Whereas here you could have electric, you could have CNG, you could have petrol, or do you think that's not a problem?
I don't think it is a problem. In fact, I feel on the contrary, Tata.ev, there's a challenge. Just imagine a Curve ICE being sold through a normal network and a Curve EV being sold through a .ev. Whereas at the Nexa outlet, just give the choice in the hands of the consumer. Let the consumer choose. And like you said, with a ready-made network, with a well-oiled machine now in terms of the kind of experience that they are offering to the consumer. So I think a foundation is set. But having said that, the kind of consumers that are now moving into Nexa outlet are a different breed altogether. I still remember the time when Maruti had come out with Nexa. It used to look at India and Bharat as two different markets, whereas India was more of an urban, modern, rising aspiration, tier 1, tier 2 kind of market. Bharat was rooted, still looking for more affordable, efficient vehicles. And the India of today, which is youthful, highly discerning, very demanding, is actually wanting products that are, state of the art, high tech, loaded with features. And we've seen what the likes of Mahindra, Tata, MG, and Kia have done. And that is one avenue I feel Maruti Suzuki would hopefully looking to address with the future models. And along with the products, I think it's also about ensuring that the experience at the dealership also evolves to the next level, because the aspirations and demands are changing so rapidly. And Maruti will have to ensure that they come out with a Nexa version 2.0 and a Nexa version 3.0 with the EVs coming in,
fully agree, Ketan. In fact, that's one of the things I think I remember writing in the column too, is that, you're setting a higher benchmark for yourself now.
Absolutely.
Because the guy in Arena is thinking, so why don't I get that?
Absolutely.
Why don't I have that fancy treatment, or, the iPads when they introduce them, sales.
Correct.
Things like that. So then you upgrade Arena and then you think, okay, wait, now Arena is the same as Nexa. So Nexa goes up. I guess in the end, the consumer wins, obviously. But yes, they're putting a lot of pressure on, their whole internal systems to raise that raise their own game.
No, I feel, Sergius, the experience has got to be hygiene now. Be it Nexa or Arena, like you mentioned, the new Swift is being sold through Arena, and clearly it's not a humble hatch. It is a hatch
up in price. Yes.
Yeah, it's moved up. It's moved up in price, and it's aimed at a customer who's wanting a lot more. So clearly, they will have to raise the bar at both the different networks. But what I feel is that it always helps if you have a dedicated space with a specialized focus on executing experience for different kind of consumers. When you try and have everything under one roof, it's sometimes a consumer also gets confused. So I think a sound foundation is laid, and it's about now getting to the next level.
Yeah, and you're right. But one of the things also, like you said, they're raising the bar, getting to the next level, I think is important. But there's one more challenge I want to discuss, and which is why I think they've addressed this with the studio, the Nexa Studio, right? Because as you're doing this, you're creating this, and as you said earlier, right, it's for the Nexa was conceived more for the tier 1 and tier 2 kind of market. Obviously, some people now want to buy like a Baleno, maybe in a tier 3 or a tier 4. So what do? You need to take Nexa there. And that was one of the challenges I thought they're going to have as well, because you're limiting the Nexa reach, right?
Right.
I think they've been really smart, though, in not allowing, let's say, Arena to sort of, source and sell. And they're doing the studio format, right? Small mini Nexa outlets, 2-car displays, I believe is what.
I think it's a fantastic concept, Sergius. What's the point in having those really large Taj Mahals when costs are going through the roof? It just doesn't make sense. And with the connectivity and with the explosion of mobile phone internet, Hinterland is as connected to the latest products, technologies than ever before. And you're traveling across India, you would know that. You've seen the penetration of even the premium products.
Or even EVs, Ketan, Tata, like they were sharing with us, and I've forgotten the percentage exactly, but it's close to half come from tier 3 and tier 4. Right? And I remember Tata, Sailesh was saying this. He says, when everyone came in, including them, into the EV space, everyone thought that EV, will be bought by a evolved customer, in a tier 1. And he says, no, almost half our sales are from actually the
smaller towns,
2, 3 and 4.
And so it makes sense. See, those studio stores actually allows them to reach out to as many markets as they can at much lesser cost. The pressure on the dealer is much lesser. The infrastructure cost is much lesser. The exposure of the brand is a lot more. And at the end of the day, you can keep changing the car at that studio store. At the end of the day, it is in the hands of the dealer who is actually managing and operating the studio store. So I think it's a novel concept. It's a right concept. It's the concept that will do well. And we've seen studio stores being, explored by literally every brand. And we've had showroom on wheels concept coming in from multiple brands. So that's the best way to reach out to greener pastures. And I think it makes sense. It makes sense.
So clearly Nexa is going to grow, right? Maruti announced, when they announced their 500th Nexa outlet, they did announce also that they're going to have 100 more Nexa studios in the next, let's say 6 months, because they said, half two of this financial. So that's a crazy amount of showrooms to be opening, right? 100 in the next 100 plus odd days here. So
That's another thing, sir. Just what I've seen when times are tough, when volumes are difficult to come by, we've seen automakers resorting to wanting to expand the outlet. And the cost is not on their books. The cost is usually in the books of the dealers. And there are many enterprising, opportunistic dealers who want to expand. So I think it's win-win for everyone. It allows Maruti to cater to newer market where they really don't have presence at this point in time. A consumer has that peace of mind that, I have a Maruti outlet close to me.
Close by.
A dealer gets an incremental business, and at the end of the day, it's win-win for everyone. So I think it's a good move, and that concept will further increase. So frugal in nature, and at the end of the day, it serves the purpose for everyone.
No, you're right. In fact, Partho was just saying that that was one of the reasons for the studio also, is that he said, look, we were getting the customers, right? People were coming from tier 2 and tier 3, but they had to travel further.
Absolutely.
To come there, to buy, to service and things like that. He says we wanted to bring it to, less than 20 minutes or 20 minutes away, because he said right now they were doing like 20, 30 minute 1 hour journeys maybe.
That's a crazy benchmark to have. I mean, a customer coming into your showroom in half an hour, that's phenomenal.
Of course, I don't know how they measure the half an hour, because here in Mumbai, anywhere where we go, I think it's an hour going to any showroom, right?
Right.
But I mean, that's their plan, to have it very close to a consumer, so he doesn't have to travel.
Adds to the convenience.
Exactly. Just adding to the convenience.
So what next on Nexa? Sergius, I also feel that there are a lot many products further expected in the future, right? I mean, they've already defined that they're going to have about 6 EVs by the end of the decade, and I do assume that they will be sold out of Nexa. There is an elder sibling of Grand Vitara which is planned, called Y17. Going to be coming out of their new factory in Kharkhoda. So that is going to take on the XUV 700. So that should be sold through Nexa. The first EVs should be sold through Nexa. So there's a lot that is going to be on offer in Nexa. So there's a lot to look forward to. In fact, the new Maruti models, or a new age Maruti, and what they internally call it 3.0, will be seen in full flow in the future Nexas. And hence I feel that they need to move to that 2.0 and 3.0, because the consumer set is going to be different, and they will have to ensure that the experience also keeps up.
Right. So what you're saying is the product is clearly sort of moving up, and it's going to pull Nexa, the retail network, higher as well.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, 100 studio stores, I do foresee them, literally going to 1,000 eventually. They have to at the end of the day, because the belly of the market, the core of the market has moved from sub 10 lakh to now 12 to 20 lakh. And Maruti's, the new models are in that zone, and the future models are also going to be pricier.
True.
So yes, Nexa is going to grow for sure. Now, the other interesting element, Sergius, is the fact that for Maruti, its hatchback space is under tremendous pressure. And you see Nexa is the channel which actually sells all the premium offering, right from your hot hatch Baleno to your crossover Fronx to Grand Vitara, and the elder sibling of Grand Vitara is going to come in future. So all the more a reason why Nexa is extremely critical strategically from a business standpoint for Maruti. And hence, I'm not surprised with the emphasis and importance given to the channel, because that is where the future volumes and profitability is also going to come from. And that is where the future customer is going to go.
So, Ketan, we've discussed this, the Nexa thing, as I think we can both agree that it has been a success.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you see other brands doing this? And I know we have some news on other brands now who are also looking at this, right? Premium networks for the same brand, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, we've reported about MG wanting to come out with its own premium outlet. Tata Motors likely to come out with its own premium channel with the Avinya range of cars. Mahindra and Mahindra, they're still dabbling with the idea. Where would
Mahindra and Mahindra?
Okay. They're still dabbling with the idea whether the Inglo-born EV vehicles, whether they will be sold through the existing outlet, yet to decide. But I mean, given the fact that EVs are still small volume, it may come out from the same showroom, but there's a thought that they need to have a differentiated outlet. Hero MotoCorp on the two-wheeler front has been expanding pretty significantly.
Yes.
Royal Enfield is looking at a dedicated EV setup. Clearly, you realize that products are different, needs are different, consumers are different, experience has to be different.
True. Yeah. In fact, I just want to remind you, Honda too actually have the big bike show.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Big wing.
Big wing.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
So I think in the two-wheeler space, in fact, we keep looking at the cars, but in the two-wheeler space too, people have
Oh,
seen that this
absolutely.
works.
Bajaj's pro biking showroom. We have the KTMs and the
True.
Husqvarnas and the Triumphs of the world and the higher priced Bajaj motorcycles. So yeah, I mean, clearly, I mean, the market is, filled with many such outlets, and there's definitely, business and rationale for automotive companies to get into.
Separate. So if we were to look at, let's say, MG, where would you see their cut happening? Where would the bifurcation happen? Would it be with a few like Tata style, where you have electric, or would it be, at a certain price point? How are they looking at bifurcating?
I think they've been looking at this new energy vehicle kind of an outlet. They want to the new promoter, Mr. Sajan Jindal. He is very passionate about pushing the electrified vehicle portfolio in India. And some of the vehicles that they're looking at is really top end, sports cars. So I would assume that these are going to be sort of high end electrified vehicle outlets. That's my initial understanding. But again, MG also straddles multiple price points with different kind of products. They have plans of coming out with plug-in hybrids of their existing C and D SUV. So remains to be seen whether they'll be sold. But I think it makes sense for them to have that, halo car kind of outlets where they can actually use that to build the JSW MG brand further.
True. And I think that's a very smart strategy, because I know in the past we did report that they were also looking at maybe a separate brand, right?
Right.
But I think with a separate network, you solved the problem of for MG of addressing different price points widely far apart. But there's a sort of that halo effect
Absolutely.
to rub off on the MG brand.
Absolutely.
The likes of a Comet, for example,
Right.
or even a Hector can
Right.
benefit from a higher end MG sold through a separate outlet.
Why not? Absolutely. I agree with you. And given the fact that they're still about 4,000, 5,000 units per month, it makes sense to continue with MG brand and build it further, because the brand has faced some headwinds over the last few years. I think it makes sense for them to build the MG brand and cross that pivotal 5,000 mark and then the 10,000 mark before they could actually look at building another brand, because establishing a brand is not an easy exercise in this market.
But having said that, Ketan, don't you think it's a little bit too early also maybe? Like you said, the product portfolio is not that vast, right? Like Maruti, they were at 15 models,
Absolutely.
MG aren't there as yet. Right. Is it a little too early, therefore, to be thinking of splitting and bifurcating your sort of?
I think
dealers complain. I mean, I think from a brand point of view,
it's a challenge from a dealer standpoint. I agree with you, because they'll have to create another setup. But what I feel from a company standpoint perspective, I mean, given the fact that with their lineage and heritage of China and UK, and given the fact that they want to showcase their prowess of electrification, it just really makes sense to have those dedicated electrified vehicle outlet. And at the end of the day, you could have a plug-in hybrid there, you could have a strong hybrid there. So there is some level of internal combustion engine powertrain there, but you could showcase your new age technology, and that's how they can actually differentiate in this market, where it's very difficult for fringe brands. And we know that 94% of the market is only top 6. The rest of the brands are really small. So I think from that perspective, it would help, but again, it's a cost, definitely.
It's a cost, right? So I think then
at that small volumes, it's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
At Maruti's volumes, it's not a challenge for a dealer, but at an MG volume, it is a challenge.
Exactly. That was my point. It's going to be a challenge for them. But I think I guess they might push it through, looking at it more as a marketing kind of expenditure rather than a business kind of expenditure, and hope that it'll then transition into a sort of profitable business, right?
And I feel if they were to do it, I think for them also a studio store makes just the ideal sense. Instead of having those large showrooms, why not have those new energy vehicle outlets to be the smaller, places where they can showcase their futuristic technology.
Exactly.
Instead of wanting to spend a lot and in the process, going to be hard for dealer to make money.
Right. So, Ketan, I think thanks, for the lovely chat. We've I think covered all of the obvious strengths, behind the Nexa and this premium outlet.
Right.
Clearly, we'll be seeing a lot more, right, from other brands.
Absolutely.
We are going to see MG for sure. We're going to see Mahindra maybe.
Maybe, yet to decide.
Tata.
Yes,
for
sure.
Right. So, yeah, you've got a lot to look forward to in terms of a premium retail experience, and you've got a lot to look forward to from Autocar too. So, stay tuned to our channel. You'll have more podcasts, more reviews, all of them coming up. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe.